Hello everyone. This is Spoiler Lab. Today we will talk about the science fiction drama Real Life. The first scene of the film takes us back to 1982, where we observe childbirth in a great detail, the birth of the main character named Marc Jarvis. His off-screen voice suggests we imagine a situation in which a kid would fully understand everything that happens to him during birth. According to him, this is the only way we can imagine resurrection. Right after this, we get to the future, the year 2084. Marc's off-screen voice tells us how a nurse named Elizabeth Mensver has met a Dr. Victor West, a genius of regenerative medicine. According to Marc, these are practically his new parents. On this day, the nurse came to apply for a job at the Medical Research Center named Prodigy, a leading company in the field of human body regeneration. To put it simply, this project is one of a kind and can give immortality to humanity. Elizabeth is reminded at the entrance about the non-disclosure of the information and is then presented to the local boss, Dr. West. He gives the girl a small tour, telling her that the Lazarus Project has been prepared for 4 years. The nurse is told that the surgery is to take place on the 25th of July, which means that the girl has 4 weeks to get ready. Lazarus will then spend 2 months in a coma, adapting to his new organs and implants, and Elizabeth will have to become not just his nurse but his companion who will help the subject adjust to the new life. A flashback takes us back to Marc's carefree childhood. It was the time when you could lay on the grass, play with a bouncing ball, pretend to be dead for the parents, cut the tails of lizards and not be afraid to jump off a cliff. The voice of adult Marc tries to understand why time in childhood passes so slowly, and the future appears without a limit. Why don't we experience these feelings when we grow up and only deal with pain? After these words, we end up in 2015 and see grown-up Marc. He is a young and ambitious designer of a marketing agency who has everything: a favorite job, financial independence, a house by the sea, and a beautiful girlfriend. But for some reason, he is still unhappy, and he sadly looks at his medical card inside a car. A doctor tells Marc in a hospital that their worst predictions came true. It is too late for surgery, but they can prolong his life for a year using chemotherapy. Marc is confused and asks the doctor why him, why at such an early age, why a tumor, why in the throat? He doesn't even have bad habits. But the doctor simply shrugs his shoulders and suggests starting the treatment. Heartbroken Marc is still in the car. He looks at his medical card and starts to think about handing over his cases at work, giving the instructions to everyone, selling shares and property, writing a will. Finally, there's also telling his relatives and friends. Or maybe he shouldn't tell them to avoid upsetting them? How can someone even tell his mother something like that? And he also has a girlfriend, lovely and loyal Naomi. It was her who finds her lost boyfriend with the medical card in his hands on some roadside outside the city. Since that moment, she has been trying to display positivity and confidence when spending time with Marc, but she constantly cries in the car when she gets to be on her own. Understanding everything, Marc asks Naomi to get back with her ex-boyfriend, who is still in love with her, but she announces that she only loves Marc and is ready to be with him till the end. Marc and Naomi decide to spend this evening with their friends. Judging by their sad faces, they already know the news. In order to disturb the awkward silence, Marc asks what they think about cryogenics. This is when a human body is frozen to be resurrected in the future. The friends start to wonder whether Marc intends to freeze himself. But he demonstrates his confident attitude since this methodology has been successfully tested on the animals. They will simply replace his throat in the future, and he will live normally. The friends are skeptical since it must be very expensive, and it is not even definite that someone will resurrect him in the future. Marc agrees and assures them that one should simply trust humanity. Naomi can no longer stand this conversation and leaves the table. Finally, the friends support Marc's decision and drink to cryogenics. The guests leave, and Marc remains with Naomi and his best friend. Marc asks his closest people to help him go before the illness takes him. Marc tells them that he doesn't want to die slowly of cancer as his dad did. According to him, his body needs to be in good condition, and frozen immediately, in order to undergo cryogenics. That's why he needs their help to organize everything. We are then transferred to 2084 and see that the preparation for Marc's resurrection is in full swing and is already at the final stage. He opens his eyes and sees a cheerful group of medical staff who greet him by his name. He suddenly feels ill, but the doctors inject him with a special medication while Elizabeth comforts him. When Marc regains consciousness, he says that he is in pain. But the medical staff assure him that this will pass. They ask him then whether he remembers his past life. Marc says that he does. The doctors also question him about what was after this life. But he answers that there was only fear, death, and then awakening. Marc is further told that there is only 20% of materials in his body belonging to him, while the rest is bionic implants. In addition, he is connected by an umbilical cord to a so-called mechanical mother, a machine that supports his life. Marc's recovery turned out to be a difficult and long process. He was practically a child who had to learn how to do everything from scratch. Marc is housed in a beautiful room with a sea view, while Elizabeth tries to please him in every way. During his further recovery, Marc asks the staff about the present world, spaceships, and the colonies on Mars. They answer that not much has changed, except for technologies. A mind reader is one of them. It is a device that allows writing down thoughts. It is used everywhere nowadays, just like smartphones were used back in Marc's days. This gadget will help the personnel understand Marc's condition and prepare his presentation to the public. He is the first resurrected person in history, and many pay a fortune to see it. Marc puts on a device and sees a chaotic set of past life memories. He abruptly takes it off, and Dr. West assures him that he will get used to it. If he learns to concentrate properly, then it will seem like a good film. Marc puts it on again and recalls the brightest moments of his life one by one, both good and bad. Elizabeth continues looking after him with great caution, and Marc compliments her appearance. The girl explains that it is easier to live now. Parents can choose a child's appearance before their birth. You can't even tell by looking at Elizabeth that she is 46 already. The girl tells him that the concept of a relationship has also significantly changed. There is no more romantic love in their world, only sexual partners. Elizabeth then offers Marc to have sex from time to time if he doesn't mind. Despite the numerous difficulties, Marc is still being prepared for his presentation to the public. But he is gradually overcome by depression, loneliness, and existential crisis. Though the personnel try to cheer him up, promising that he will be the most popular person on Earth. Occasionally, Marc remembers Naomi, with whom they met in the college. She was young back then, hot, and dated numerous guys at the same time. Marc suffered a lot because of this, but he did win her heart one day, and Naomi chose him. They happily dated for a few years till the moment when she found him on the roadside. Naomi spent his last year of life alongside him until that fateful night. Elizabeth hands over a surprise for Marc, Naomi's letter from the past. It says that she also decided to freeze herself in 2023 in order to reunite with him in the future. So, there is a good chance that Marc will be able to see her, and maybe this will cheer him up. But he didn't remain happy for long. The medical staff organized a tour for Marc around a huge premise with a large number of frozen people. Dr. West explains that they can't revive everyone because it is a very expensive procedure. Naomi was frozen far too late, so her body is in a deplorable state, and there is little chance of her resurrection. Left alone with Elizabeth, Marc wonders if he is indeed the first one to be resurrected or there had been other people before him after all. Elizabeth diplomatically changes the subject, referring to the confidentiality of this information. She offers Marc to go for a walk, but he refuses incredulously. Marc has isolated and retreated into himself since then. Elizabeth suggests the superiors take him out into the world, but they refuse. First and foremost, they need to present him well to the media. Elizabeth occasionally has sex with Marc to entertain him somehow. But it is not enough for him, and Marc intends to get the answers to all his questions. He sneaks into a secret lab at night and steals several microchips with information about the former patients. Having played them by using the reader, Marc finds out that he is far from being the first one. There had been many resurrected ones before him, but all of them had died in horrible torment. The much anticipated event comes. Dr. West appears before the distinguished public consisting of investors and patrons. He announces a historical moment, the first resurrection in history. Marc shows up, causing a round of applause. In addition, Dr. West announces another surprise. Marc had a beloved one in his past life named Naomi, and she will be the second one to be resurrected. Of course, if the patrons don't mind sponsoring this. The public applauds, but Marc is clearly not pleased. Left alone with Marc, the doctor asks him what is wrong. Marc says that he knows of the horrors that happened here to the former patients. West admits everything and says that he also suffered because of this. They were getting closer to the goal with every step they took, and he finally became the first successful Lazarus. But Marc is enraged anyway and calls the doctor a monster, who created a similar monster. West goes away, leaving him alone. Marc seems down in the dumps and thinks about the sense of life. He concludes that a man loses his soul after freezing, leaving it behind in the previous body. He remembers the beautiful moments with Naomi but still returns to that fateful night when it all ended. Having found Marc missing, the nurse finds him among the cryocapsules. Elizabeth tries to comfort him, reminding him about the chance to resurrect Naomi. But Marc says that he doesn't wish the same fate upon her because he himself suffers. Marc remembers how suicide saved him from cancer in his past life, assuming that this is also the right way out now. He asks Elizabeth to help by merely giving him a name of a medication, he will do the rest himself. But the girl becomes very upset and refuses. Marc decides to record all his memories for the ancestors and then wait for the weekend to end it all. Elizabeth visits Marc the following evening, whispers oxycron into his ear, and leaves. Having waited for the right moment, Marc sneaks into the lab, finds the medication and goes down the memory lane once again before taking it. Naomi caused a scene that night, and he decided not to torment her anymore. She woke up in the middle of the night and went to the kitchen where she saw terrified Marc with a glass in his hands. Without much hesitation, he hugs Naomi, drinks the poison, and reminds her that she must make 2 phone calls, firstly, to the cryogenic lab, and then to 911. The girl follows his last instructions with tears in her eyes. Similarly to what happened in the past life, Marc drinks the poison but decides to damage Naomi's cryocapsule before dying, thus killing her as well. Right before his death, it occurs to Marc that the corporation, having wasted so much effort and money on this project, is unlikely to just let him die. He suddenly opens his eyes and sees that same group of medical staff, only a different smiling nurse replaces Elizabeth. Dr. West apologizes to Marc for his previous mistakes, hoping it will all work out better this time. He suddenly starts to feel ill, and the doctors inject him with a sedative. Thanks to everyone for watching. Subscribe to the channel, click the like button, suggest your films in the comment, and we will try to cheer you with high quality content as often as possible. See you soon.